Beneath our feet lies a hidden world of staggering scale and age, a labyrinth of artificial caverns so deep, so ancient, they defy belief. Picture this: tunnels and chambers carved into the earth, not centuries, but millennia before the pyramids of Egypt rose from the sands. These aren't natural formations. They were dug by human hands, or perhaps by hands we don't yet fully understand. What drove people to burrow so far into the darkness, to chip away at rock with nothing but primitive tools, leaving behind voids that swallow modern explorers whole? The answers are as elusive as the shadows clinging to these subterranean walls. But one thing is certain: these caverns are more than just empty space. They're time capsules, whispering secrets of a past so distant it predates cities, writing, even agriculture itself. Think about the sheer audacity it took to create these spaces. Without modern machinery, without even the wheel, ancient builders removed millions of tons of stone, descending deeper than some of the tallest skyscrapers reach into the sky. Why? Was it for shelter, for ceremony, or something far more enigmatic? Some of these caverns align with celestial events, their passageways catching the first light of the solstice like ancient sundials. Others spiral downward in patterns that mirror sacred symbols found across forgotten cultures. The deeper we dig into their history, the more questions arise, questions that challenge what we thought we knew about early human ingenuity. This isn't just a story about holes in the ground. It's a story about us, about the relentless human drive to shape the world, to leave a mark that echoes across time. These caverns are monuments to curiosity, to the kind of determination that makes people dig into the unknown, literally and figuratively. And as we explore their depths together, you'll begin to see them not as silent voids, but as echoes of a lost chapter in our collective story. So let's descend carefully into the darkness, where the air is thick with mystery and every turn holds the potential to rewrite history. What we uncover might just change how you see the ancient world, and the people who shaped it long before history began keeping records. Artificial caverns are more than just hollowed-out spaces. They're deliberate acts of engineering, carved with a precision that whispers of purpose. Unlike the winding, unpredictable chambers of natural caves, shaped by millennia of water and geology, these underground labyrinths bear the unmistakable marks of intention. Their walls are often smooth, their passages aligned with celestial events or geometric patterns, their depths plunging far beyond what seems practical for mere survival. What's astonishing isn't just that ancient people built them, but how they did it, without the benefit of modern tools, without even written language to pass down blueprints. They moved mountains of stone, sometimes creating spaces so vast entire villages could fit inside. Take the ancient copper mines of modern-day Michigan, for example. Dug nearly 5,000 years ago by a culture we know almost nothing about, these tunnels plunge hundreds of feet into the earth. The miners didn't just hack at the rock randomly, they followed veins of copper with surgical precision, leaving behind piles of hammerstones and fire-cracked boulders as evidence of their methods. But here's the mystery: the copper they extracted vanished from the archaeological record. No local artifacts contain it. So where did it go? Some theories suggest it was traded across continents, fueling Bronze Age civilizations an ocean away. Others propose even more enigmatic explanations. What's clear is that these miners weren't just digging for survival. They were part of something bigger, a network of knowledge and ambition we're only beginning to trace. Then there are the underground cities of Cappadocia, where entire societies thrived beneath the surface. These weren't simple hideouts. They were engineered metropolises with ventilation shafts, water wells, and even stables for livestock, all hidden beneath layers of volcanic rock. Some descend nearly 300 feet, their entrances cleverly disguised as natural formations. Why go to such lengths? Was it defense, religion, or something else entirely? The deeper we look, the more these caverns blur the line between practicality and symbolism. But perhaps most baffling are the artificial caves that seem to defy any obvious purpose. Like the massive, bell-shaped chambers found in Malta, carved from solid limestone over 4,000 years ago, their walls ripple with intricate spirals and patterns, their acoustics so precise that a whisper at one end can be heard clearly at the other. No one knows for certain what rituals or gatherings took place here, but the craftsmanship suggests a sophistication that rivals, or even surpasses, what we'd expect from the era. What ties all these sites together isn't just their artificial origins, but the questions they force us to ask. How did ancient builders achieve such feats? What knowledge was lost to time? And why did so many cultures, separated by continents and centuries, feel compelled to burrow so deeply into the earth? The answers might lie not in the darkness of these caverns, but in the light they shed on the ingenuity of our ancestors, or perhaps on the mysteries we've yet to uncover. Among these ancient underground marvels, the Wieliczka salt mine in Poland stands as a testament to medieval engineering, yet it feels almost modern compared to far older subterranean wonders. Dug in the 13th century, its labyrinthine tunnels stretch over 170 miles, with chapels, statues, and even chandeliers carved entirely from salt. But step further back in time and you'll find structures that make Wieliczka seem like a recent project. The hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, for example, isn't just old, it's prehistoric. Carved from solid limestone around 5,000 years ago, this three-level underground temple complex is so acoustically precise. Certain chambers amplify voices into eerie, resonant frequencies. Some researchers believe these sound properties weren't accidental but central to rituals performed there, turning the very rock into an instrument of worship. Then there's Derinkuyu in Turkey, an underground city so vast it could shelter 20,000 people. Its origins are shrouded in mystery, but evidence suggests it was first carved by the Hittites around 3,000 years ago, or possibly even earlier by an unknown culture. What's staggering isn't just its scale, but its sophistication. Derinkuyu wasn't just a refuge, it was a fully functional metropolis. Vertical staircases connected levels like streets, while massive stone wheels could seal passages against invaders. Ventilation shafts plunged hundreds of feet, ensuring fresh air reached even the deepest chambers, and it wasn't alone. Dozens of similar cities dot the region, hinting at a networked underground civilization thriving beneath the surface. But here's what truly bends the timeline. Some of these sites show signs of reuse across millennia. Layers of soot on Derinkuyu's ceilings suggest generations lived there, each adding to its complexity. The hypogeum's walls bear traces of red ochre pigment, a clue that its original builders might have passed it down to later cultures who adapted it for their own rights. These caverns weren't static, they were living spaces evolving with the people who occupied them. What does this tell us? That the impulse to carve into the earth isn't just about survival or even religion, it's about legacy. These builders weren't just digging holes, they were creating sanctuaries meant to endure, to whisper across ages. And as we uncover more, we're left wondering, how many other underground networks lie forgotten, waiting to rewrite the story of human ingenuity? The most startling revelation about these subterranean wonders isn't just their scale or sophistication, it's their age. Some of these caverns predate what we consider the dawn of human civilization itself. Geological surveys and carbon dating have revealed tunnels and chambers carved into bedrock over 12,000 years ago, a time when humanity was still nomadic, hunting mammoths with stone-tipped spears. This isn't just ancient history, it's prehistoric, older than the invention of the wheel, older than the first seeds planted at the birth of agriculture. How could hunter-gatherers without permanent settlements or metal tools orchestrate such monumental excavations? The math doesn't add up unless we're missing a piece of the puzzle. Take the mysterious underground complex of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. While its towering stone circles grab headlines, beneath them lie networks of tunnels and cisterns, some dating back 11,000 years. That's 6 millennia older than Stonehenge. The builders had no writing, no domesticated animals, yet they moved and shaped massive stones with precision, burying their creations underground as if hiding them from time itself. Even more perplexing, the site was deliberately backfilled at some point, sealed under layers of earth as if preserving it for future generations, or keeping something hidden. Then there's the controversial case of the Bosnian pyramids, where some researchers claim to have found artificial tunnels beneath ancient hills, with stone blocks bearing tool marks older than the pyramids of Egypt. Mainstream archaeology remains skeptical, but if even a fraction of these claims hold weight, they point to a forgotten chapter of human ingenuity. What's striking is the consistency of the mystery. Across continents, from South America to Southeast Asia, there are whispers of underground systems attributed to those who came before, cultures lost to the fog of time. The implications are staggering. If these caverns were indeed dug before the rise of cities, before the concept of kings or priests, then who orchestrated them? Were they the work of a now vanished civilization, one that mastered stone and earth only to disappear without a trace? Or do they reflect a shared human impulse, a primal urge to dig, to explore, to create sanctuaries in the dark? The tools they used might have been simple: fire, water, and brute force, but the vision behind them was anything but. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't how they built these spaces, but why. Were they hiding from cataclysms we've yet to uncover, honoring gods whose names we'll never know? Or did they understand something about the earth, its energy, its secrets that we're only beginning to glimpse? Every scrape of a pickaxe mark on those ancient walls is a message in a language we're still learning to read. And as we piece together these clues, we're forced to confront a humbling possibility. Civilization, as we define it, might be far older and far stranger than we ever imagined. The idea that these caverns were the work of a lost advanced civilization isn't just speculation, it's a hypothesis backed by puzzling evidence. Look closely at the precision of their construction. The walls of Derinkuyu's underground city, for instance, aren't just haphazardly dug. They're smoothed to near-perfect angles, with ventilation shafts that follow principles of airflow modern engineers would recognize. Then there's the hypogeum of Malta, where acoustic properties suggest an understanding of sound waves that seems impossible for a society without written language. How do we explain this? Either ancient peoples possessed knowledge far beyond what we've credited them with, or someone before them laid the groundwork, a culture so old, its very existence has been erased. The argument gains traction when you consider the tools, or rather the lack of them. In many of these sites, archaeologists find no traces of the advanced implements needed to carve such spaces. No metal tools, no machinery, just simple stone hammers and fire-hardened picks. Yet the scale of removal, millions of tons of rock in some cases, defies logic. It's as if the builders had techniques we've yet to rediscover, like using water or heat to fracture stone with surgical precision. Some researchers point to legends from indigenous cultures worldwide, stories of sky people or earth teachers who shared forbidden knowledge. Could these myths be fragmented memories of real, advanced predecessors? Then there's the celestial alignment factor. Many of these caverns aren't just random holes, they're meticulously oriented to solstices, equinoxes, or specific stars. Göbekli Tepe's underground channels, for example, align with the constellation Cygnus, a pattern repeated in ancient sites across the globe. This isn't just artistry, it's astronomy encoded in stone. The implication, a shared, sophisticated understanding of the cosmos predating known civilizations by thousands of years. Of course, the most controversial twist is the extraterrestrial angle. While mainstream science dismisses it, the sheer improbability of some feats keeps the theory alive. The tunnels beneath the pyramids of Giza, with their laser-straight corridors and granite blocks fitted to micrometer precision, have fueled speculation for decades. But here's the catch: even if we entertain the idea of outside influence, it doesn't answer the deeper question. Whether the knowledge came from stars or a forgotten human epoch, these builders achieved what should have been impossible for their time. That realization forces us to rethink not just history, but the very trajectory of human innovation. Maybe progress isn't a straight line, maybe it's a spiral, with secrets buried in cycles we're only beginning to uncover. What's haunting is the silence. No inscriptions, no blueprints, no clear purpose left behind. Just empty chambers waiting in the dark, as if the builders knew their work would outlast their names. That absence speaks louder than any artifact. It suggests a civilization that didn't just disappear, it chose to vanish, leaving behind clues meant to be found only when we were ready to understand them. And that, perhaps, is the most advanced feat of all. Ancient mining operations offer a compelling and surprisingly practical explanation for some of these vast underground networks. Imagine a world where flint was as valuable as gold, where salt could mean the difference between survival and starvation. These weren't just resources, they were lifelines, and early humans went to extraordinary lengths to secure them. Take the Great Orme copper mine in Wales, a labyrinth of tunnels carved 4,000 years ago with nothing more than stone hammers and fire. The scale is staggering, over 5 miles of passageways, some plunging 200 feet deep, with thousands of tons of rock painstakingly removed. This wasn't casual digging, it was industrial, a coordinated effort that would have required planning, labor, and a society organized enough to sustain it. But here's the puzzle: why dig so deep? Copper deposits near the surface would have been easier to reach, yet these miners followed veins downward, as if driven by something beyond mere necessity. One theory suggests that surface resources were exhausted, forcing communities to venture further into the earth. Another possibility: these materials held ritual significance. In some ancient cultures, metals weren't just tools, they were sacred, believed to carry the energy of the underworld. The act of mining might have been as much a spiritual journey as an economic one. Then there's the mystery of the missing output. At Great Orme, archaeologists estimate that nearly 2,000 tons of copper were extracted, enough to produce millions of axes or ornaments. Yet few artifacts from the mine itself have been found in the surrounding area. Where did it all go? Evidence points to far-flung trade networks, with Welsh copper turning up in Bronze Age sites across Europe. This hints at a connected world where raw materials traveled hundreds of miles, linking distant cultures in ways we're only beginning to understand. Salt mines tell an equally fascinating story. Places like Hallstatt in Austria, where Bronze Age miners carved intricate tunnels to reach white gold, a commodity so vital it fueled empires. Salt preserved food, healed wounds, and even served as currency. But again, the depth is baffling. Some of these mines descend hundreds of feet, far beyond what seems practical for primitive tools. The answer might lie in climate. During ice ages, surface salt sources could have been scarce, pushing communities to dig deeper, literally, for survival. Yet not all mining sites fit neatly into this narrative. Some caverns show no signs of valuable ores, their walls unmarked by tool strikes or ore extraction. Others, like the flint mines of Grimes Graves in England, reveal something stranger, meticulously dug shafts that seem almost ceremonial, their floors littered with offerings like antler picks and chalk carvings. Were these mines also temples, spaces where the act of extraction blurred into ritual? The line between practicality and spirituality in the ancient world was often thin, if it existed at all. What emerges is a picture of ingenuity and ambiguity. These miners weren't just laborers, they were pioneers pushing the boundaries of technology and belief. Their tunnels are more than holes in the ground. They're fingerprints of a mindset that saw the earth not just as something to exploit, but as a partner in survival, a keeper of secrets. And as we trace their footsteps in the dark, we're left wondering, did they ever imagine we'd follow? The darkness of these artificial caverns wasn't just an absence of light, it was a sacred space, a threshold between worlds. Ancient cultures didn't just dig for shelter or resources, they carved into the earth to touch something transcendent. The hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, with its echoing chambers and blood-red ochre stains, wasn't merely a tomb. It was a portal. Skeletons found curled in fetal positions suggest rituals of rebirth, as if death here wasn't an end but a return to the womb of the earth. The acoustics amplify whispers into ghostly echoes, mimicking the voices of ancestors or gods. This wasn't architecture, it was alchemy, turning stone into a conduit for the divine. Derinkuyu's labyrinthine tunnels tell a different but equally spiritual story. While its sheer scale suggests practicality, protection from invaders or natural disasters, the placement of chapels and baptismal fonts deep within its levels hints at a deeper purpose. Some scholars believe these underground cities doubled as sacred spaces, where communities performed rites shielded from the eyes of the surface world. The act of descending itself may have held symbolic weight, mirroring myths of journeys to the underworld or trials of initiation. After all, darkness has always been a canvas for the human imagination, a place where the boundaries between the mortal and the mystical blur. Then there's the eerie silence of the oracle chambers in the hypogeum, where vibrations resonate at frequencies that induce trance-like states. Was this intentional? Ancient priests might have used these sonic properties to commune with spirits, their voices merging with the earth's own hum. Similar acoustic wonders appear in the caves of Crete, where Minoans painted goddesses on walls that hum when chanted to. The parallels are uncanny, cultures separated by seas and millennia, yet united by the belief that the earth itself could speak. Artifacts left behind deepen the mystery. In the hypogeum, figurines of corpulent women, perhaps deities of fertility, lie beside altars stained with animal sacrifices. At Derinkuyu, crosses carved into walls centuries after its construction show how new faiths repurposed old sanctuaries, layering belief like geological strata. Even the tools found in these spaces defy simple explanation. Why would miners bury perfectly usable picks as if offering them to the earth, unless the digging itself was an act of devotion, a prayer in motion? The most compelling clue might be the absence of light. Torch marks are scarce in many of these caverns, suggesting some rituals unfolded in total blackness, a sensory deprivation that could dissolve the ego, opening the mind to visions. Modern explorers report disorientation, even hallucinations, after hours underground without light. Imagine the power such an experience would hold for ancient worshippers, convinced they'd crossed into the realm of gods or ancestors. But here's the twist: not all sacred caves were solemn. Some, like the underground shrines of Malta, bear traces of feasting animal bones, wine residues hinting at celebrations where the living and dead shared a meal. Others, like the labyrinthine tunnels beneath Mesopotamian ziggurats, were designed to confuse, turning pilgrims' journeys into tests of faith. The diversity is staggering: burial sites, oracle chambers, banquet halls, all hidden beneath the soil. What unites them is the recognition that the earth isn't inert. It's alive with power, a force to be revered, feared, or harnessed. Whether these caverns were seen as the belly of a goddess, the throat of a dragon, or a stairway to the stars, one thing is clear: their builders understood something we've largely forgotten: that sometimes to reach heaven, you must first go underground. The precision of these ancient underground structures isn't just impressive, it's borderline inexplicable. Take the ventilation systems in Derinkuyu, for example. Shafts plunge nearly 200 feet, delivering fresh air to every level with an efficiency that rivals modern HVAC design. How did builders achieve this without compasses or blueprints? One theory points to fire. By lighting controlled blazes at potential vent sites, they could track airflow through smoke patterns, mapping invisible currents like early engineers. Others suggest they observed natural cave systems, mimicking the way drafts move through porous rock. But even then, the execution is staggering. These aren't crude holes, they're carefully calculated conduits, angled to prevent collapse while maximizing circulation. Water management is another puzzle. In the underground city of Mardin, Turkey, channels carved into bedrock direct rainwater to subterranean cisterns, complete with sedimentation filters to purify it. The math behind these gradients is precise. Too steep and erosion would destabilize tunnels, too shallow and water would stagnate. Yet somehow, ancient builders found the perfect balance, using nothing more than gravity and intuition. Some tunnels even feature weeping walls, thin stone barriers that allow moisture to seep through slowly, creating natural reservoirs. This isn't just survival, it's hydrology mastered millennia before the scientific method. Then there's the matter of structural integrity. The bell-shaped chambers of Malta's hypogeum shouldn't still be standing. Limestone is brittle, prone to cracking under its own weight over time. Yet these rooms have endured for 5,000 years. The secret: curved ceilings. Unlike flat surfaces that concentrate stress, the hypogeum's arch designs distribute weight outward, a principle modern architects call compressive strength. Even more baffling, some walls bear tool marks suggesting they were polished with abrasives, an ancient form of stress relieving, smoothing microscopic fractures that could lead to collapse. But the real head-scratcher is the alignment. At Göbekli Tepe, underground passages mirror celestial patterns with eerie accuracy. One shaft aligns with the North Star's position 11,000 years ago, while another frames the sunrise on the winter solstice. Achieving this without telescopes or written records would require generations of naked-eye astronomy, passing down observations orally with near-perfect precision. Or, as some researchers speculate, it hints at inherited knowledge from a culture predating even Göbekli Tepe's builders. The tools left behind only deepen the mystery. At many sites, archaeologists find simple hammers and antler picks, yet the walls they supposedly carved show no matching strike marks. Instead, some surfaces appear melted or vitrified, as if subjected to extreme heat. Could ancient builders have used fire, setting heating rock with flames, then dousing it with water to fracture stone? It's possible, but that doesn't explain the glassy finishes in certain chambers. a phenomenon usually requiring temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Perhaps most telling are the mistakes, or rather, the lack of them. Modern engineers expect trial and error in ancient projects, yet these caverns show few signs of structural failures. It's as if the builders knew exactly where to dig, avoiding weak strata or groundwater pockets. Some speculate they used sound, tapping rocks to listen for hollow tones indicating unstable zones. Others point to folklore about dowsing, where certain individuals could sense water or faults beneath the earth. Whatever the method, their success rate defies probability. The unsettling truth: we may never fully reverse engineer their techniques. These builders didn't just work with stone, they worked with time, designing spaces meant to outlast empires. Their knowledge wasn't recorded in books but etched into the earth itself, a silent testament to ingenuity that humbles even our modern prowess. And as we stare at these tunnels, smooth as glass and straight as arrows, we're left with one haunting thought. If they could do this with stone tools, what else did they know that history forgot? Derinkuyu isn't just an underground city, it's an entire civilization turned inside out. Descending nearly 300 feet into the earth, this labyrinth of tunnels, staircases, and chambers could shelter up to 20,000 people, complete with everything needed for survival: wine presses, oil mills, even livestock pens carved directly into the rock. The engineering is so advanced it rivals modern bomb shelters. Massive circular stone doors, each weighing up to a ton, could roll into place to seal off passages from invaders. Ventilation shafts ensured fresh air reached even the deepest levels, while wells tapped into underground water sources, making the city self-sufficient for months. This wasn't a temporary hideout, it was a fortress designed for generations. But who built it? The most widely accepted theory points to the Phrygians around 2,500 years ago, though some evidence suggests earlier layers might belong to the Hittites, a Bronze Age empire that vanished mysteriously around 1200 BCE. What's striking is the continuity. Derinkuyu shows signs of occupation across centuries, with Christian later adding chapels and frescoes to its depths during Roman persecution. It's as if every civilization that encountered this place recognized its purpose: survival against overwhelming odds. The why is even more fascinating. Conventional wisdom says it was defense protection from raiders like the Mongols or Arab armies, but Derinkuyu's design hints at something more prolonged than fleeting raids. The storage rooms hold enough grain to feed thousands for years, and the tunnels connect to other underground cities miles away, suggesting a network ready for mass migration. Was this preparation for war or something more apocalyptic? Some researchers point to climate. Around 5,000 years ago, a volcanic eruption in Turkey may have triggered a nuclear winter, forcing populations underground to escape years of frost and famine. Others cite ancient texts describing comet impacts or devastating earthquakes, cataclysms that could make the surface uninhabitable. Then there's the psychological aspect. Living in perpetual darkness would have required extraordinary social cohesion. How did communities avoid despair or conflict in such confined quarters? The answer might lie in the city's layout: neighborhoods clustered around shared kitchens and chapels, with communal spaces designed to foster connection. Even the acoustics play a role. Certain chambers amplify sound, allowing leaders to address crowds without shouting. This wasn't just architecture, it was social engineering. The most haunting question isn't how they built it, but how often they needed it. Derinkuyu's repeated use implies cycles of crisis, a rhythm of collapse and rebirth etched into the earth itself. And that raises a chilling parallel. If ancient societies retreated underground so frequently, what does that say about the stability of our own civilization? The stones of Derinkuyu whisper a warning: progress is fragile and darkness is always closer than we think. The earth remembers catastrophes we've long forgotten: layers of ash, shifts in soil, the silent scars of ancient disasters. And some researchers argue these artificial caverns are time capsules of survival, carved not just by choice but by necessity. Picture a world where the sky darkened for years after a volcanic eruption, where temperatures plummeted so drastically that crops failed and rivers froze. In such extremes, the subterranean wasn't just shelter, it was the only refuge from a surface turned hostile. Take Göbekli Tepe. This sprawling temple complex, dating back 11,000 years, wasn't just abandoned, it was meticulously buried. Tons of soil were hauled in, entombing its towering stone pillars as if sealing away a sacred secret. Why? One compelling theory points to the Younger Dryas period, a sudden climatic reversal around 12,000 years ago that plunged the planet back into Ice Age conditions. Temperatures dropped sharply, megafauna vanished, and human populations collapsed. In this light, Göbekli Tepe's burial reads less like ritual and more like preservation. A Noah's Ark of knowledge hidden below ground, waiting for the world to heal. But Göbekli Tepe isn't alone. The underground cities of Cappadocia, with their vast stores of grain and intricate water systems, mirror the preparations of a society bracing for disaster. Volcanic ash layers in the region suggest eruptions so violent they would have blotted out the sun for months. Survivors couldn't outrun toxic air or frigid temperatures, but they could dig. The very rock that threatened them became their salvation, offering insulation from the cold and filtration from airborne toxins. Then there's the eerie absence of tool marks in some caverns. At sites like the Hypogeum of Malta, walls are so smooth they seem polished by water rather than chisels. Could these spaces have been repurposed from natural fissures, expanded during emergencies when time was short? Ancient flood myths from Mesopotamia to the Andes speak of deluges so devastating they forced people into mountains or caves. Geology backs this up. Sea level spikes around 7,000 years ago swallowed coastlines worldwide, displacing entire cultures. For communities living near rising waters, tunneling inland might have been the only escape. The most haunting evidence lies in the bones. In some subterranean chambers, skeletons cluster in unnatural positions, their remains showing signs of malnutrition or trauma. Were these the last holdouts of a famine-stricken community, or victims of a catastrophe that followed them underground? At Derinkuyu, archaeologists found hastily abandoned tools and half-eaten meals, as if the inhabitants fled mid-meal, but to where? And from what? Climate wasn't the only threat. Seismic activity could have turned stable regions into death traps overnight. In Turkey's earthquake-prone zones, underground cities like Derinkuyu sit atop fault lines, their flexible, honeycombed structures far more resilient than surface dwellings. Ancient builders might have recognized this, choosing to live where the Earth's tremors were muffled by layers of rock. Yet the darkest possibility isn't just survival, it's repetition. Ice cores and sediment layers reveal a grim pattern. Our planet cycles through calamities like clockwork. Volcanic winters, solar flares, asteroid impacts. These aren't one-time horrors but recurring threats. Did ancient cultures, through oral history or bitter experience, know something we're only now rediscovering? That civilization is fleeting, and the Earth's crust is the only reliable vault. The silence of these caverns is deafening. No inscriptions boast of their builders' triumphs. No art depicts the disasters they feared. Just empty passageways and sealed doors, as if the architects understood that some truths don't need to be carved in stone. They're written in the act of digging itself. When the sky falls, the earth remembers, and sometimes it shelters those who listen. The artifacts pulled from these caverns aren't just relics, they're whispers from the dark, fragments of lives lived beneath the weight of the earth. Take the hypogeum's elongated skulls, for instance, found nestled in alcoves like sacred offerings. Their distorted shapes ignite debates that rage to this day. Were they the result of deliberate cranial binding, a practice seen in cultures worldwide to signify status or spirituality? Or could they point to something more enigmatic, like genetic anomalies or even the shadowy legends of star people whispered in local folklore? The truth might lie in the dirt itself. Traces of red ochre still clinging to these skulls suggest rituals, a reverence for the dead that transcended the boundaries of the living world. Then there are the tools, not the crude stone hammers we'd expect, but finely crafted obsidian blades and copper chisels, some so delicate they seem better suited to surgery than mining. Found deep in the tunnels of Derinkuyu, these implements hint at a level of specialization that defies the stereotype of prehistoric survival. Who were these artisans, and what were they creating in the flickering torchlight? The answer might lie in the walls themselves. Microscopic grooves on certain surfaces suggest they weren't just digging blindly, but sculpting with precision, perhaps following veins of ore invisible to the naked eye. Pottery shards tell another story. In the caverns of Cappadocia, archaeologists unearthed vessels unlike anything from surface settlements, thick-walled, lidded containers with interior residues of fermented grains and herbs. These weren't storage jars, they were subterranean breweries, evidence that life underground wasn't just about endurance but culture. Imagine the scene, a community gathered in a torch-lit chamber, sharing ale brewed from crops grown in sunless gardens, their laughter echoing off walls carved by ancestors they'd never met. But some discoveries resist interpretation altogether. Like the spiral-carved stones of Malta's hypogeum, their patterns matching celestial maps no Neolithic culture should have known. Or the clay tablets in Turkey's underground cities, etched with symbols that predate the earliest known writing systems by millennia. These aren't just artifacts, they're anomalies, pieces of a puzzle that doesn't fit the timeline we've constructed. Human remains add yet another layer. In one Derinkuyu chamber, skeletons were found curled around bundles of medicinal herbs, their bones showing signs of healed fractures and chronic infections. These people weren't just hiding, they were healing, turning the earth into a sanctuary for the sick and wounded. Elsewhere, mass graves speak of darker times, their occupants bearing marks of violence or malnutrition. The soil here is an archive, recording not just how these people died, but how they clung to life in the unlikeliest of places. The most haunting finds, though, are the ones that hint at ceremony. In a side chamber of the hypogeum, a single child skeleton was found cradling a figurine of a bull, its tiny hand still clutching the symbol of strength and fertility. Was this a burial, a sacrifice, or something in between? The silence of the stones offers no easy answers, only the certainty that these caverns were more than shelters. They were stages for the human drama, where joy, grief, and devotion played out in the flickering dark. Every artifact is a breadcrumb, leading us deeper into the labyrinth of the past. But with each discovery, the mystery grows richer, reminding us that history isn't a straight line, it's a spiral, winding downward into places we're only beginning to understand. Step into the echoing chambers of the hypogeum, and you'll notice something unsettling. The way your voice lingers, transforming even a whisper into a chorus of ghostly reverberations. This isn't accidental. The entire structure hums at a frequency of 110 Hz, a tone scientifically linked to altered states of consciousness. Ancient builders didn't just carve these spaces, they tuned them, shaping limestone like the body of a colossal instrument. Modern experiments reveal that chanting at this specific pitch causes the walls to vibrate, creating harmonics that seem to emanate from the rock itself. Was this a deliberate attempt to bridge the physical and spiritual worlds? The phenomenon isn't isolated. In the underground temples of Chavin de Huanta, Peru, conch shell trumpets called pututus still produce low-frequency drones when blown inside narrow passageways, sound waves that literally rattle bone. Archaeoacoustics researchers found that these frequencies trigger a primal response in the brain, inducing trance-like focus or even euphoria. The builders likely understood this intuitively, designing corridors that functioned like organic amplifiers. Even more striking, the same acoustic principles appear in sites separated by oceans and millennia. From the catacombs of Hal Saflieni to the subterranean galleries of Newgrange in Ireland, ancient cultures converged on eerily similar designs without any apparent contact. Then there's the mystery of selective resonance. Certain chambers in the hypogeum amplify only male voices in the baritone range, while others enhance higher pitches, an effect that suggests ritual roles or gendered ceremonies. At Derinkuyu, narrow ventilation shafts act as natural waveguides, carrying conversations between levels with uncanny clarity. Some scholars argue these weren't just practical features but sacred technologies, allowing priests or oracles to project divine messages across distances. Imagine standing in the central chamber as a chant begins somewhere in the depths, the sound swelling as if the earth itself were speaking. The psychological impact would have been profound, reinforcing beliefs in unseen forces. But the most baffling acoustic feats defy easy explanation. In Malta's Zagra Stone Circle, a sister site to the hypogeum, researchers discovered that striking certain limestone slabs produces pure musical tones. When mapped, these notes form a pentatonic scale, a 5-note sequence foundational to global musical traditions. Coincidence? Unlikely. The slabs vary in density, suggesting they were carefully selected or even modified to achieve specific pitches. This implies a sophistication beyond mere ritual. It hints at a lost science of sound, where architecture and acoustics merged into something akin to applied metaphysics. Why invest such effort? The answer might lie in the human brain's response to rhythmic vibration. Studies show sustained exposure to resonant frequencies around 110 Hz decreases activity in the language centers while stimulating the right hemisphere, the seat of creativity and spiritual experience. In essence, these caverns weren't just places of worship. They were machines for shifting consciousness, engineered environments that facilitated communion with the divine. Whether through chanting, drumming, or simply standing in silence, visitors would have undergone subtle neurological changes, priming them for visions or revelations. Yet the most haunting possibility isn't what these acoustics did, but what they preserved. Oral traditions in cultures from Aboriginal Australians to Tibetan monks use sonic repetition to encode vast histories in memory palaces of sound. Could the hypogeum's chambers have functioned similarly, their resonances acting as mnemonic devices for storing knowledge? If so, the true purpose of these spaces might not be carved in their walls, but sung through them, a technology of memory we're only beginning to decode. The stones remember what we've forgotten if we learn to listen. Natural caves are the work of water and time, sculpted by millennia of blind geological forces, twisting passageways and jagged chambers formed without intention. But the artificial caverns we've been exploring, every inch of them bears the fingerprints of purpose. Where natural caves meander unpredictably, these tunnels follow straight lines or precise curves. Their walls are smooth, their ceilings leveled, their junctions marked by deliberate symmetry. This isn't erosion, it's engineering. The difference between the two is like comparing a river-worn pebble to a gemstone cut by a master jeweler. One is shaped by chance, the other by vision. Take the mineral deposits as proof. In natural caves, stalactites and stalagmites grow where water drips at random, their formations chaotic and organic. But in places like Derinkuyu or the hypogeum, you'll find no such whimsy. Instead, there are tool marks, consistent, parallel striations showing where chisels bit into rock with rhythmic precision. Even the floors tell a story. Natural caves slope and buckle with the Earth's contours, while these ancient tunnels often feature graded steps or drainage channels, proof that their builders accounted for water flow and human traffic. The contrast becomes even starker when you consider lighting. Natural caves are pitch black unless penetrated by sunlight or torches. Yet many artificial caverns show evidence of reflective surfaces, polished stones or metallic inserts placed to amplify flickering flames, creating ambient illumination. Some, like the Oracle Chamber in Malta, even position light sources to dramatic effect, casting shadows that seem to animate carved figures on the walls. This isn't just digging, it's stagecraft, a manipulation of space and perception that transforms darkness into a canvas. Purpose radiates from every feature. Natural caves might shelter bats or bears, but these constructed labyrinths housed entire communities, stored sacred relics or amplified rituals. The difference raises a profound question. Why go to such lengths when nature provided ready-made hollows? The answer might lie in control. Natural caves are wild, unpredictable. Their air can turn toxic, their floors collapse without warning. But artificial caverns are domesticated darkness, spaces where every risk is mitigated, every corner accounted for. They represent humanity's refusal to merely adapt to the earth, their declarations of our need to reshape it. Yet the most telling difference isn't in the stone, it's in the silence. Natural caves echo with the sounds of dripping water and shifting rock, a chorus of indifference. But these hand-carved voids seem to hold their breath, as if waiting for the next chant, the next footfall, the next act in a drama we've only begun to decipher. They weren't just built to last, they were built to mean something. And that intention, more than any tool mark or alignment, is what sets them apart from the random beauty of the natural world. Legends cling to these ancient caverns like shadows to stone, whispering of forces beyond human hands. In Cappadocia, elders still speak of the Selim giants, mythical beings said to have carved Derinkuyu's labyrinth with fingers of fire. The Phrygians themselves claimed their underground cities were gifts from Cybele, the mother goddess who taught them to shape the living earth. These aren't just fanciful tales, they're cultural memory encoded in metaphor, preserving truths that archaeology is only beginning to uncover. Consider the recurring motif of divine builders. From Malta's hypogeum, where local lore claims a race of sleeping giants rests beneath the chambers, to the Andean myths of Viracocha tunneling through mountains with a golden staff, cultures worldwide share eerily similar narratives. The common thread, underground spaces so vast, so precise, that attributing them to ordinary humans seemed impossible. Modern science might dismiss these as primitive explanations, but there's another possibility. That these stories contain distorted recollections of advanced ancient technologies lost to time. Take the dragon tunnels of China's Longyu caves as an example. Local farmers insisted for centuries that the massive subterranean chambers were the work of celestial dragons, their walls too smooth, their pillars too perfectly spaced for mortal hand. When archaeologists finally investigated in the 1990s, they found precisely what the legends described: 45,000 square meters of artificial caverns, their walls bearing uniform chisel marks at 60-degree angles, a technique requiring mathematical knowledge the area's Bronze Age inhabitants supposedly lacked. The villagers' superstitions had preserved key details for millennia. Even more compelling are the Hopi emergence myths, which describe their ancestors ascending through successive underground worlds before reaching the surface. These stories mirror the layered construction of sites like Derinkuyu, where each level served distinct ceremonial and practical purposes. Coincidence? Perhaps, but when indigenous Australian songlines accurately describe landscapes flooded 12,000 years ago, or when Maori oral histories recount volcanic eruptions verified by geological records, it forces us to reconsider what ancient cultures truly knew and how they chose to preserve that knowledge. The most haunting legends speak of warnings. In Turkey, folktales tell of the Tavşanlı people, who sealed themselves underground to escape a sky-borne catastrophe, their tunnels marked by symbols modern researchers link to comet observations. Similar stories echo across continents: the Mayas' place of fear, caves where gods hid from heavenly wrath, or Norse sagas describing Yggdrasil's roots penetrating caverns that sheltered survivors of cosmic winters. These aren't random horror stories. They're survival manuals disguised as mythology, passed down through generations who understood that history repeats. What's striking is how often these myths reference sound. The Welsh legend of the Bells of Cantre'r Gwaelod, a sunken kingdom whose chimes still echo underground, mirrors the hypogeum's acoustic properties. Native American traditions describe singing caves, where shamans communed with spirits, precisely the effect created by Malta's resonant chambers. When multiple cultures separated by oceans and epochs describe similar phenomena, we must ask, were they witnessing the same extraordinary technologies? The truth may lie between archaeology and oral tradition. Perhaps the giants were skilled engineers whose feats seemed supernatural to later generations. Maybe divine blueprints were carefully guarded trade secrets passed through initiation rites. Whatever the case, dismissing these stories as mere fantasy risks silencing voices that have carried truth for thousands of years. The stones may hold the facts, but the myths remember why they mattered. Modern technology has peeled back layers of time without lifting a single stone. Ground-penetrating radar pulses through bedrock like a sonar for solid Earth, painting ghostly images of chambers no human eye has seen for millennia. In Turkey's Cappadocia region, these scans recently revealed an entire undiscovered level beneath Derinkuyu, a network of tunnels stretching toward another underground city 6 miles away. The implications are staggering. What was once thought to be isolated refuges now appear as nodes in a subterranean highway system, connecting communities across vast distances like an ancient metro. Three-dimensional mapping adds another dimension to the mystery. Lasers scan every crevice of these caverns, reconstructing them digitally with millimeter precision. When researchers fed Malta's hypogeum data into virtual reality systems, they noticed something unsettling: certain chambers align with constellations visible 11,000 years ago, patterns invisible from the surface. Even more eerie, the VR headset's motion tracking revealed that walking these paths in darkness, your body naturally follows celestial pathways as if guided by some deep ancestral memory. Yet for all our technological prowess, some secrets remain locked away. Water-filled tunnels beneath the Yucatan's Maya caves resist sonar imaging, their depths guarded by labyrinthine karst formations. Remote-operated submersibles have glimpsed pottery and human remains in these submerged passages, but the caves extend far beyond their reach. Similarly, seismic sensors in Peru's Chavin de Huanta detect hollow spaces behind walls too fragile to excavate, perhaps the legendary golden chambers described in colonial-era manuscripts. The greatest limitation isn't our tools, but the caverns themselves. Many artificial tunnels show signs of deliberate obstruction, collapsed passages, false walls, even booby-trapped shafts. At Derinkuyu, thermal cameras detected heat signatures behind what appeared to be solid rock, suggesting hidden chambers sealed with a sophistication that rivals modern vaults. Were these precautions against invaders or safeguards for something more profound? Perhaps the most tantalizing discoveries come from combining old and new. When archaeologists superimposed 19th-century sketches of the hypogeum over current 3D models, they noticed discrepancies, whole corridors documented by early explorers that now appear filled in or altered. This isn't natural decay. Someone, at some point, actively modified these spaces long after their original construction. The why remains one of archaeology's most persistent whispers. As drones navigate treacherous shafts and AI algorithms reconstruct eroded murals, we're left with a paradox. Each technological leap reveals more hidden complexity, yet the essential mystery only deepens. These caverns weren't built to be forgotten. They were built to be found, but on their own terms. And as our tools grow sharper, the Earth seems to whisper back with ever more intricate riddles. The silent guardianship of these ancient caverns is a race against time, not just centuries, but the very minutes ticking by as tourists exhale moisture onto 5,000-year-old carvings, or urban sprawl vibrates the bedrock beneath forgotten tunnels. Preservation isn't merely about locking doors. It's a high-stakes negotiation between curiosity and conservation. Take Malta's hypogeum, where breath by breath, the humidity from visitors' lungs once threatened to dissolve the ochre paintings adorning its chambers. The solution, a draconian cap of 80 visitors per day, each passing through an airlock-style dehumidification chamber before entering. Even then, the microclimate is so delicate that a single misplaced step can alter temperature gradients etched into equilibrium over millennia. But tourism is just one enemy. In Cappadocia, the soft volcanic tuff that made Derinkuyu's construction possible now crumbles like sugar under the weight of unchecked development. Apartment blocks sink pilings into the earth, their vibrations spider-webbing cracks through frescoed subterranean chapels. Meanwhile, in China's Longyu caves, groundwater contaminated by nearby factories seeps into the sandstone, carrying acids that erase tool marks sharper than any modern chisel could achieve. The paradox is cruel. The same human ingenuity that carved these wonders now threatens to erase them through neglect or ambition. Technology offers fragile hope. At the hypogeum, laser scans create immutable records of every pigment fleck and striation, while climate-controlled viewing galleries allow visitors to experience chambers vicariously via holograms. In Turkey, engineers inject eco-friendly silica gels into crumbling tunnel walls, mimicking the binding properties of ancient mortars without introducing destructive chemicals. Yet these are stopgaps. The real challenge is redefining value, convincing governments that a single undisturbed stratum of soil in Göbekli Tepe's tunnels holds more historical weight than a new shopping complex's foundation. Some solutions are as old as the caves themselves. The Maori of New Zealand's Waitomo caves employ a radical philosophy, kaishiakatanga, or guardianship rooted in ancestral obligation. By training indigenous youth as docents, they've slashed vandalism while ensuring knowledge passes sustainably between generations. Similarly, in France's Lascaux cave, authorities built an exact replica nearby down to the bacterial composition of the original's walls, diverting millions of visitors while the actual Paleolithic art rests in darkness preserved by absence. The stakes transcend archaeology. These caverns are climate archives. Their layers of dust and minerals contain precise records of ancient atmospheres, offering blueprints for surviving modern environmental shifts. Lose them and we sever a lifeline to humanity's past and possibly its future. The question isn't whether we can afford to protect them, but whether we can afford not to. Every collapsed tunnel, every faded mural, isn't just a loss of history, it's a page torn from the survival manual our ancestors left us. And unlike stone, once that knowledge crumbles, no amount of technology can piece it back together. Some of these underground spaces hold features so peculiar, they seem to defy the laws of physics, or at least the limits of ancient engineering. Take the circular shafts found in certain European caverns, their walls polished to a mirror finish, descending straight as arrows through solid rock. Modern laser measurements reveal deviations of less than 1 millimeter over 30 feet, a precision-matching machine tooled pipes from the industrial age. How could Bronze Age cultures achieve such geometric perfection with stone tools? One theory suggests they used weighted plumb lines and rotating platforms, slowly grinding the walls with abrasive sands over generations. But even this explanation strains credulity when applied to shafts nearly 200 feet deep, their diameters never varying by more than a hair's breadth. Then there are the enigmatic markings. In Derinkuyu's deepest chambers, geometric patterns spiral across ceilings, not random scratches, but deliberate sequences resembling the entoptic visions induced by trance states. Similar symbols appear in Romania's Movile cave, etched beside sulfur vents where no human should have been able to breathe for more than minutes. Most baffling are the clustered dots and lines found in Malta's hypogeum, arranged in patterns that mirror constellations only visible through modern telescopes. Were these star maps sacred mathematics or something else entirely? Mainstream archaeology often dismisses them as quarry marks or ritual graffiti, but their repetition across continents suggests a shared symbolic language lost to time. The anomalies grow stranger. In Bolivia's Puma Punku tunnels, stone blocks interlock with notched joints so precise, they resist the insertion of a razor blade, a technique requiring metallurgy far beyond what the Tiwanaku culture supposedly possessed. Meanwhile, Turkey's underground cities contain cold storage rooms that maintain a constant 46 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, despite surface temperatures swinging from freezing to scorching. The secret, ingenious air circulation systems leveraging geothermal heat gradients, a principle modern architects call passive thermal regulation. Perhaps most unsettling are the acoustic oddities. Certain chambers amplify only specific frequencies, like the hypogeum's oracle room, where a deep male voice triggers resonance while higher pitches vanish into the stone. Others, like China's Longyu caves, produce eerie harmonic drones when wind passes through hidden flutes carved into pillars. These aren't random effects, they're reproducible phenomena requiring advanced knowledge of sound wave physics. The sheer variety of these anomalies makes blanket explanations impossible. Natural processes can't account for the geometric precision, while conventional archaeology struggles with the sophistication. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between, not a single advanced civilization, but pockets of forgotten genius, cultures that glimpsed fragments of deeper knowledge before vanishing into the dark. What remains certain is this: every unexplained curve, every cryptic symbol, is a crack in the wall of history, and through those cracks we glimpse possibilities that rewrite everything we thought we knew. The idea that extraterrestrial hands might have shaped these ancient underground wonders is one of archaeology's most polarizing debates. On one side, skeptics roll their eyes, dismissing it as pseudoscience. On the other, true believers point to the sheer impossibility of certain feats, like Derinkuyu's ventilation shafts, aligned with near-surgical precision, or the hypogeum's acoustic chambers, which manipulate sound in ways that still baffle physicists. Could these be the fingerprints of visitors from beyond our world? the argument often hinges on a single, jarring discrepancy: the gap between what ancient humans supposedly knew and what they actually achieved. Take the case of Puma Punku in Bolivia, where andesite blocks weighing hundreds of tons were cut with geometric perfection, edges so sharp they suggest tools far beyond Bronze Age capabilities. Mainstream archaeology attributes this to patient labor and stone abrasives, but proponents of the ancient astronaut theory counter with a simple question: where are the tools? No chisels hard enough to carve andesite have ever been found in the region. Similarly, Malta's hypogeum features spirals that match the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern not formally documented until millennia later. Coincidence or evidence of outside influence? Then there's the eerie consistency of certain motifs. From the serpentine tunnels beneath Mesoamerican pyramids to the star-aligned chambers of Göbekli Tepe, underground sites worldwide share uncanny similarities, like a global blueprint whispered across continents. Ancient astronaut theorists argue this points to a shared extraterrestrial tutor, a civilization that seeded advanced knowledge before vanishing. They cite texts like the Indian Vedas, which describe flying machines called vimanas capable of melting stone with energy beams, or Sumerian tablets depicting gods handing down the arts of mining and metallurgy. Even the Dogon people of Mali, with their inexplicable knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, fit this narrative. Yet for all its allure, the theory crumbles under scrutiny in key places. Carbon dating proves many of these sites were built centuries apart, eliminating the possibility of a single architect. And while precision engineering seems miraculous, experiments have shown that Neolithic builders could achieve similar results with fire, water, and patience. The real irony: some of the most alien features, like the hypogeum's resonance frequencies, have earthly explanations: limestone's natural acoustic properties amplified by careful carving. What's often overlooked is the human capacity for innovation under pressure. Faced with famine or invasion, ancient societies might have achieved leaps in technology that later generations forgot. The underground cities of Cappadocia, for instance, weren't just hideouts, they were laboratories of survival, where necessity bred inventions like vertical wells and rolling stone doors. To credit extraterrestrials is to underestimate our ancestors' genius, reducing their legacy to something handed down rather than earned. Still, the theory persists, fueled by genuine mysteries and a cultural appetite for the unexplainable. Perhaps its greatest value lies not in answers, but in the questions it forces us to ask. Why do so many cultures speak of sky gods teaching them to dig? Why do these caverns feel like time capsules waiting for the right key? Whether the truth involves celestial visitors or simply lost human ingenuity, one thing is certain: the Earth's deepest hollows guard secrets that still defy our grasp. And until every tunnel is mapped, every chamber understood, the debate will rage on, not in academic journals, but in the hushed awe of those who stand in these shadows, wondering who or what came before. The deeper we look, the more these artificial caverns seem to whisper the same secrets as other ancient marvels: Stonehenge's towering monoliths, the pyramid's celestial alignments, even the mysterious moai of Easter Island. It's as if a thread of invisible knowledge stitches these sites together across continents and millennia. Consider the solstice alignments. Just as sunlight pierces the heart of Newgrange's underground passage in Ireland, it also strikes specific chambers in Malta's hypogeum with uncanny precision. Both sites predate the pyramids by thousands of years, yet both encode the same intimate understanding of the sun's dance. Coincidence or evidence of a shared blueprint older than history itself? Then there's the matter of geometry. The bell-shaped chambers of the hypogeum mirror the curvature of certain Egyptian underground tombs, their acoustics amplifying sound in eerily similar ways. Meanwhile, the ventilation shafts of Derinkuyu align with the same cardinal points seen in the Great Pyramid's air channels, a design choice that seems too deliberate to dismiss. Even more striking are the tool marks. The parallel striations found on walls in Bolivia's Pumapunku match those in Turkey's underground cities, as if the same hands or the same techniques were at work across oceans. But here's where the mystery deepens. If these sites were connected, how? The distances are vast, the cultures seemingly isolated. One theory points to the sea. Ancient mariners, often dismissed as primitive, might have carried not just goods but ideas, architectural principles, astronomical knowledge, along trade routes now lost to rising waters. The copper mined in Michigan's ancient tunnels, for instance, has been traced to Mediterranean artifacts, proving that raw materials traveled farther than we once imagined. Could knowledge have flowed the same way? Another possibility is even more radical, that these parallels aren't the result of contact but of something innate. Psychologists call it convergent evolution, the idea that similar challenges spark similar solutions, even in unrelated cultures. Faced with the need to mark solstices or stabilize underground structures, perhaps ancient builders arrived at the same innovations independently. Yet this doesn't quite explain the precision of the overlaps. Why would cultures separated by oceans choose the same obscure mathematical ratios or acoustic tweaks? The most tantalizing clues lie in the stars. At Göbekli Tepe, carvings of scorpions and foxes mirror constellations as they appeared 11,000 years ago. The same celestial patterns found in French cave paintings and Mesopotamian cylinder seals. Underground, these alignments take on a practical dimension. Ventilation shafts in Derinkuyu point to Polaris, while Malta's hypogeum chambers frame the winter solstice sunrise. It's as if these builders were part of a global project, mapping the heavens not just on the surface but in the Earth's belly. Yet for all the tantalizing connections, gaps remain. The absence of writing at many of these sites leaves us guessing at their true purpose. Were they linked by trade, by religion, or by something we've yet to name? The stones refuse to say. What they do tell us is this: the ancient world was far more interconnected or far more intuitively brilliant than our textbooks ever imagined. And every new discovery pulls that thread tighter, weaving a story that might one day rewrite history itself. Water shaped these underground worlds in ways both practical and profound. Ancient builders didn't just seek shelter in the earth, they forged a delicate partnership with the element that sustains all life. From the moment you step into Derinkuyu's caverns, the presence of water is undeniable. Narrow channels carved into the floors guide rivulets toward cisterns, while vertical shafts plunge deep enough to tap into hidden aquifers. This wasn't just engineering, it was a dance with hydrology, a mastery of underground streams that turned barren rock into livable space. But water's role went beyond survival. In Cappadocia's underground cities, archaeologists found ritual basins positioned where natural springs seeped through the walls, suggesting that every drop was revered as sacred. The symbiosis between water and stone becomes even clearer in Malta's hypogeum, where chambers seem to pulse with moisture. Humidity here isn't an accident, it's meticulously controlled. Vents funnel damp air from lower levels upward, creating microclimates that preserved pigments on the walls for millennia. Even more striking are the resonating pools, shallow depressions where water amplifies chanting into thunderous echoes. Modern tests reveal these acoustics only work when the pools are half-filled, a precision that hints at ceremonial purpose. Were these ancient sound engineers using water as an instrument, tuning its depth like the strings of a harp? Then there are the mysteries of contamination, or rather, the lack of it. In Turkey's underground cities, wells draw from depths where water should be brackish or sulfurous, yet residue analysis shows it was potable. The secret lies in filtering systems of charcoal and porous stone, some still functional after 3,000 years. But why go to such lengths when surface rivers flowed nearby? The answer might lie in catastrophe. Sediment layers in these cisterns tell a story of drought so severe, entire communities retreated underground to guard their last water sources. Water's symbolic power runs even deeper. In the Andean caves of Caverns, tunnels flood rhythmically during rainy seasons, creating temporary mirrors that reflect carved fanged deities, an illusion of gods rising from the underworld. Similarly, the submerged passages beneath Mexico's Pyramid of the Sun align with the zenith sunrise, transforming still waters into celestial calendars. These weren't just functional designs, they were theology written in hydraulics, a belief system where water bridged the mundane and the divine. The most haunting evidence comes from dry places. In Oman's Al Huta cave, Bronze Age miners dug through limestone to reach an underground lake, leaving behind stone markers that map submerged tunnels. Divers recently found tools at depths exceeding 100 feet, proof that ancient humans ventured into flooded darkness with nothing but lung capacity and braided reed ropes. What compelled them to risk these depths? Copper ore was one incentive, but offerings of carved shells suggest the water itself held spiritual significance, perhaps as a gateway to ancestral realms. Today, hydrogeologists are uncovering even stranger connections. Sonar mapping in Turkey revealed that Derinkuyu's wells align with fault lines where geothermal activity warms the water, a natural heating system exploited by ancient builders. Meanwhile, in the Yucatan, Maya cenotes form a vast interconnected network, their tunnels echoing the constellations of their creation myths. This interplay of necessity and reverence challenges our modern divide between utility and worship. For these cultures, water wasn't just a resource, it was a living force, a collaborator in carving sanctuaries where humanity could endure and commune with the earth itself. What emerges from the damp shadows isn't just a story of survival, but of symbiosis. Every channel, every cistern, every echoing pool whispers of a time when humans didn't just harness water, but honored its power. And as modern droughts parch regions once teeming with rivers, these ancient solutions born of desperation and devotion suddenly feel less like relics and more like revelations. The geometric precision of these underground chambers isn't just architectural, it's a language. Spirals carved into Malta's hypogeum walls mirror the growth patterns of galaxies and nautilus shells, while circular chambers in Turkey's underground cities align with celestial events down to fractions of a degree. This isn't random decoration. These shapes pulse with intention, echoing sacred geometry found in temples worldwide, the same ratios that define the Parthenon's columns and the Great Pyramid's base. What's startling is how these patterns emerge independently across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. The spiral petroglyphs in Ireland's Newgrange, for instance, bear uncanny resemblance to those in Arizona's Hopi Kivas, as if both cultures tapped into some universal blueprint. Consider the solstice alignments. At certain times of year, sunlight pierces Derinkuyu's deepest tunnels, illuminating altars that sit in darkness for 11 months. The angles are so precise they account for atmospheric refraction, an astronomical calculation supposedly beyond ancient capabilities. Similarly, the hypogeum's Holy of Holies chamber aligns with the winter solstice sunrise, its entrance designed so light creeps along a serpentine path before striking a central pillar. This level of sophistication suggests these weren't just ceremonial spaces, but functioning cosmological models where the earth and heavens converge. The recurring presence of certain numbers deepens the mystery. Measurements of Cappadocia's underground chapels consistently reveal proportions based on pi and the golden ratio mathematical constants, not formally documented until centuries later. Even more enigmatic are the Fibonacci sequences found in Malta's tunnel patterns, their spiraling curves matching growth algorithms in nature. Were these builders encoding sacred knowledge into stone, creating three-dimensional mandalas meant to elevate consciousness or harness unseen energies? Then there's the shadow play. In Bolivia's Puma Punku tunnels, strategically placed apertures project constellations onto back walls during equinoxes, turning solid rock into an astronomical projector. Similar effects occur in Egypt's Serapeum, where shafts transform sunlight into dagger-like beams that stab specific sarcophagi at solar zenith. This interplay of light and geometry feels less like primitive worship and more like applied physics, a marriage of spirituality and science we're only beginning to decipher. What unites these diverse sites is their creators' apparent belief that shape itself held power. The circle represented eternity, the spiral embodied transformation, and their intersections created nodes of energy concepts echoed in modern quantum physics descriptions of toroidal energy fields. Perhaps these ancient architects understood something we're relearning, that form and frequency are inseparable, and the earth itself can amplify intention when sculpted with sacred precision. Their legacy isn't just in the stones they moved, but in the patterns they left whispering across millennia, a silent testament to humanity's eternal quest to map the invisible. Living in perpetual darkness would have broken lesser societies, yet ancient underground dwellers turned the Earth's belly into a thriving habitat. The air alone posed a deadly challenge without proper flow. Carbon dioxide buildup could suffocate entire communities in hours. But walk through Derinkuyu's passages and you'll feel the subtle brush of fresh air even 300 feet below ground. The secret ventilation shafts engineered with the precision of modern HVAC systems, their angles calculated to harness thermal dynamics. Warm air rising from cooking fires created convection currents, pulling stale air up and out while drawing oxygen-rich breezes through hidden surface openings. This wasn't guesswork, it was physics mastered through observation and necessity. Psychological survival demanded even greater innovation. Unlike claustrophobic natural caves, artificial caverns were designed to combat isolation. Communal kitchens in Cappadocia's underground cities show evidence of shared meals, charred hearths surrounded by grinding stones and pottery shards, suggesting rituals of connection. Curved walls absorbed echoes to prevent the maddening reverberations of cramped spaces, while strategically placed oil lamps cast warm, flickering light onto ochre-painted murals of forests and animals. These weren't just decorations, they were windows to the surface world, a cognitive lifeline for those spending months beneath the soil. Storage solutions reveal another layer of brilliance. At Derinkuyu, circular grain silos were carved with grooves to deter rodents, their depths lined with volcanic ash as a natural preservative. Honey and fermented foods stocked in separate chambers provided both nutrition and medicinal benefits. Underground beehives were even discovered in some tunnels, their bees adapting to darkness by abandoning circadian rhythms. Water management was equally sophisticated. Cisterns in Turkey's underground cities still hold liquid after millennia, thanks to resin-sealed cracks and sedimentation channels that filtered impurities without modern materials. The true marvel lies in the social structures these environments fostered. With no natural light to mark days, communities likely relied on water clocks or candle-marked timekeeping. Burial sites show no signs of elevated violence despite crowded conditions. Instead, evidence of healed fractures and elder care suggests cooperation trumped conflict. Perhaps most telling are the children's toys found in Cappadocia, tiny clay animals and spinning tops, proof that life underground wasn't just endured but celebrated. Modern engineers still study these spaces for lessons in sustainable living. The passive cooling systems that kept temperatures constant, the acoustic buffers that preserved sanity, the waste management solutions that prevented disease, all achieved without plastics or fossil fuels. These builders didn't just adapt to darkness, they domesticated it, turning raw stone into a canvas for human resilience. Their greatest legacy isn't the tunnels they left behind, but the proof that ingenuity can flourish even when the sun disappears. The same caverns that once sheltered entire civilizations from cataclysms now host wedding receptions and Instagram influencers. In Turkey's Cappadocia, boutique hotels carved into ancient underground cities offer cave suites with Wi-Fi and minibars, their original stone doorways now framing honeymoon selfies. This repurposing isn't just practical, it's poetic. The Wieliczka salt mine's subterranean chapel, where miners once prayed by flickering lamplight, now echoes with orchestral performances, its salt crystal chandeliers refracting LED spotlights. But beneath the novelty lies a delicate tension. When does adaptation become appropriation? Some transformations feel like natural evolutions. The wine caves of Francesois Valley, where medieval monks aged vintages in limestone tunnels, still nurture barrels of Cabernet Franc, their cool, stable temperatures unchanged for 800 years. Similarly, Malta's Hypogeum, once a Neolithic burial site, now limits visitors to protect its acoustics, allowing whispered chants to resonate just as they did for prehistoric worshippers. These continuities honor original purposes while granting new generations access to wonder. Yet other repurposings raise ethical eyebrows. In China's Longyu caves, laser light shows illuminate hand-chiseled walls for rave parties, their ancient quarry marks drowned in techno beats. Archaeologists cringe at the humidity from breath and alcohol degrading 5,000-year-old surfaces, while cultural advocates ask, would we turn the Sistine Chapel into a nightclub? The debate intensifies at Derinkuyu, where luxury hotels advertise authentic underground living, while erasing the city's history as a refuge for persecuted Christians. Original frescoes are whitewashed for minimalist decor, their sacred symbols replaced by recessed lighting. Perhaps the most thoughtful adaptations bridge past and present. Poland's Wieliczka salt mine balances tourism with tradition. Its underground sanctuaries still host mass, and miners maintain centuries-old techniques to preserve structural integrity. In New Mexico's Carlsbad Caverns, indigenous guides lead tours that blend geology with ancestral stories, ensuring commercial access doesn't eclipse cultural memory. These models prove modernization needn't mean erasure. The ethical line often comes down to consent. Unlike living cultures that can protest misuse, these ancient builders left no instruction manuals. Their silent stones become mirrors reflecting whether we see them as sacred spaces, historical artifacts, or just profitable real estate. As climate change drives more construction underground, their legacy challenges us. When we repurpose the past, are we preserving it or just pillaging in slow motion? The answer may lie not in the caverns themselves, but in the respect we bring to their shadows. Not every shadow in these ancient tunnels hides a mystery. Sometimes the truth is simpler than legend would have us believe. Take the so-called laser-cut walls of Puma Punku, often cited as proof of lost technology or alien intervention. Close inspection reveals striations matching the wear patterns of stone abrasives, tools archaeologists have found in nearby excavation sites. The precision is remarkable, yes, but it's human ingenuity at work, not extraterrestrial gadgetry. Similarly, the impossible acoustics of Malta's hypogeum lose some of their mystique when you consider limestone's natural resonance properties. Carve any soft rock into a symmetrical chamber, and sound will behave in eerily amplified ways, a fact ancient builders likely discovered through trial and error, not divine revelation. Then there's the enduring myth of underground cities stretching continent to continent, a global network whispered about in conspiracy circles. While sites like Derinkuyu are undoubtedly vast, claims of transatlantic tunnels collapse under geological scrutiny. The infamous Bosnian pyramid tunnels, for instance, were debunked as natural karst formations by teams of independent geologists. Yet the legend persists, fueled by sensational documentaries and a human craving for interconnected hidden histories. Why? Because the idea of a secret world beneath our feet taps into something primal, the allure of unexplored frontiers in an era when satellites map every inch of the surface. Even dating controversies reveal how easily fiction overtakes fact. The assertion that Göbekli Tepe's underground layers predate the last ice age crumbles when you examine the carbon samples. Misinterpreted strata and contaminated samples led to exaggerated claims, yet these inaccuracies still circulate as proof of a 12,000-year-old advanced civilization. The reality that Göbekli Tepe is an astonishing 11,000 years old gets overshadowed by the more dramatic but false narrative. It's a pattern. When actual archaeology fails to meet our appetite for the extraordinary, myth rushes in to fill the gap. The most stubborn misconceptions revolve around purpose. Tourist brochures love to label every subterranean chamber a temple or sacred space, but many were pragmatic. The oracle chambers of Cappadocia, more likely grain storage silos, their echoing acoustics an unintended side effect of their shape, the star maps on some cavern ceilings. Often just lichen patterns or water stains, their celestial connections imagined by overeager researchers. This isn't to diminish their cultural value, it's to recenter our awe on what's real. The truth that Neolithic miners moved mountains of stone with fire and patience, or that Bronze Age engineers calculated airflow without calculators, is no less extraordinary than any fiction. Yet debunking doesn't drain these sites of wonder, it refocuses it. When we strip away the alien architects and the Atlantean pipe dreams, what remains is even more compelling. The unyielding brilliance of ordinary humans, solving problems with nothing but observation, creativity, and time. The myths endure because they're seductive, but the facts, when you let them speak, tell a story that's far more profound. The future of unraveling these ancient underground mysteries lies not in shovels and brushes alone, but in technologies that would seem like magic to their original builders. Imagine extracting entire chapters of history from a single gram of cave soil. That's the promise of sediment DNA analysis. Scientists now can isolate genetic traces left by the skin cells, hair, and even breath of those who walked these tunnels millennia ago. In Derinkuyu's deepest chambers, researchers have already detected microbial signatures hinting at long-vanished food stores, while in Malta's hypogeum, pollen remnants reveal what plants adorned ritual spaces. These invisible clues paint intimate portraits, the sweat of miners clinging to copper-rich walls, the last meals of those buried in sacred darkness, even the diseases that swept through crowded subterranean cities. But the revolution doesn't stop there. LiDAR drones, originally developed for mapping rainforests, are now penetrating cave systems too dangerous for human explorers. In Cappadocia, these flying scanners recently uncovered an entire hidden level beneath Cappadocia, its passages blocked by carefully placed rubble. perhaps a deliberate seal against invaders or forgotten knowledge. Meanwhile, quantum gravimetry, a technology that measures minute variations in gravity, can detect hollow spaces hundreds of feet below the surface without a single excavation. Teams in Peru are using it to search for the legendary golden chambers beneath Chavín de Huanta, said to hold artifacts from a pre-Inca civilization. The most tantalizing breakthroughs may come from AI-assisted archaeology. Machine learning algorithms trained on global cave patterns are identifying construction techniques shared across continents, like how certain support arches in Turkey's underground cities mirror those in Mayan cenotes, despite the oceans between them. Other programs reconstruct eroded murals by analyzing pigment traces invisible to the naked eye, effectively repainting vanished artworks in virtual space. At Göbekli Tepe, neural networks are decoding symbols by cross-referencing them with global petroglyph databases, revealing potential links between cultures thought to be isolated. Interdisciplinary approaches are tearing down academic silos. Geologists now collaborate with acousticians to understand how ancient builders harnessed natural resonance, while materials scientists study Bronze Age mortar recipes that outlast modern concrete. Perhaps most unexpectedly, astrophysicists have entered the fray. By modeling sunlight penetration in solstice-aligned tunnels, they've proven some sites functioned as precise calendars, correcting assumptions about how early cultures tracked time. Yet for all our technological prowess, some secrets may resist revelation. The ethical dilemmas are mounting. Should we digitally unwrap burial chambers protected by millennia of darkness? Can 3D printing recreate artifacts too fragile to display? As we stand on the brink of rewriting history with these tools, we're also forced to confront a humbling truth. The deeper we dig, the more we realize how much remains veiled. The stones have kept their secrets for thousands of years. They may yet choose to keep a few more. The world's deepest artificial caverns aren't just hollowed-out spaces. They're mirrors reflecting humanity's relentless drive to shape the unknown. These underground marvels defy the simplistic notion that ancient cultures were primitive or unskilled. Imagine standing in Derinkuyu's shadowy passages, running your fingers along walls smoothed by hands that worked without blueprints or metal tools, and realizing these builders moved more earth than some modern construction projects. Or listening to the hypogeum's chambers hum at frequencies that alter consciousness, a feat we're only now understanding through physics. These sites don't just challenge our assumptions about the past, they shatter them, revealing layers of sophistication we're still piecing together. What's most profound isn't just how these caverns were built, but why. Were they sanctuaries from cataclysms, as the scorch marks and sealed tunnels of Göbekli Tepe suggest? Temples where sound and stone conspired to bridge worlds, like Malta's echoing oracle chambers, or something more enigmatic, buried laboratories, repositories of lost knowledge, even shelters from something we've yet to name. The diversity of answers is itself a clue. These spaces were as multifaceted as the cultures that carved them, and that's the real revelation. There's no single narrative. Each tunnel, each alignment, each carefully placed artifact whispers a different piece of a puzzle we're only beginning to assemble. The journey to understand them is far from over. With every technological leap from LiDAR revealing hidden networks to AI decoding ancient acoustics, we peel back another layer, but some truths may remain buried, not for lack of tools, but because the Earth guards its secrets well. Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson these caverns teach: humility. For all our satellites and supercomputers, we're still catching up to the ingenuity of people who dug into darkness with nothing but fire and patience. So what's next? Maybe the next discovery will be a chamber untouched for millennia, its walls scribbled with symbols we can finally read, or a tool that reveals the impossible precision behind Puma Punku's geometry. Or perhaps the real revelation will be recognizing that these caverns aren't relics of a forgotten past, but guideposts for a future where we'll need the same resilience that carved them. After all, if our ancestors could thrive beneath the weight of the earth, what does that say about our own capacity to adapt? The stones have kept their silence for thousands of years. But if we listen closely, they might just tell us stories we've never dared to imagine. What do you think these underground wonders are hiding? Drop your theories below and keep exploring, because history's deepest mysteries are always waiting just beneath the surface.